This film essentially asks three questions, when it asks questions at all. What is intelligent design? Is intelligent design a euphemism for creationism? And is intelligent design science? Well, let's take those one at a time. Intelligent design is the speculation that nature, the world, and the universe are so complex and so orderly that they themselves imply a designer. It submits that the only things of equal complexity and order are things that have been made and designed themselves by intelligent human beings, like machines. Is intelligent design a new word for creationism? Well, no. Creationism looks first at the Bible, states that everything in it is true, and proceeds from there to tailor science to fit what's stated in it. Intelligent design is almost the opposite. Intelligent design starts with nature and then points out the theological implications of it. Creationism starts with a theological implication and then looks at nature. To put it another way, intelligent design is an argument from inference, where creationism is an argument from dogma. So now that those two are out of the way, is intelligent design science? No. A few minutes into the film, Stein says the following, and I quote, "I had always assumed that science was free to ask any question, to pursue any line of inquiry. Well, you were wrong. Science can ask questions about the natural world. If you look at what we discover through science and note any theological or anti-theological implications, you're not doing science anymore, you're doing philosophy. Science does not and cannot tell us whether the world we live in is under the providence of a great celestial designer. Any conversation on that subject is necessarily under the domain of philosophy. The same goes for any anti-theological implications of science. Whenever we say God, we are at that moment having a philosophical discussion. People look at nature, they look at science, they look at cosmology, and they draw many theological and anti-theological implications. But those implications themselves are not science. Intelligent design does not study science. It studies the theological implications of science. Let me put it another way. Plato taxonomized mathematics as an intangible yet fully existing and comprehensible thing, and he cited this as evidence of a non-physical realm that this principle exists in. I'm simplifying that, but the point is, we wouldn't teach that in math class. Plato wasn't doing math, he was pointing out the implications of math. One more point on that same topic. I have a sort of catchphrase when it comes to the theory of evolution, and I use it when speaking with creationists and the like. The theory of evolution is not the theory of how we all could have gotten here if there were no God. That is, Darwinian evolution is not anti-theological. It may have anti-theological implications, but it is not in and of itself an anti-theological statement. Stein interviewed a biologist who published an article by Dr. Stephen Meyer which speculated that intelligent design may be able to explain the origins of life, and he was fired for it. I felt sorry for Dr. Meyer, but I think that that was a good and necessary action in order to make sure that these two separate subjects are preserved. If a chemist had published an article speculating that alchemy might be able to explain certain aspects of chemistry, I suspect the same would have happened to him. One of the people that Stein interviewed said the following, and I quote, "Before you can ask, is Darwinian evolution correct? You have to ask, is it clear enough so that it could be correct?" Yes. Anyway, this whole business about evolution isn't a complete picture, there are missing pieces to the puzzle, is just plain not a good argument. Most of our scientific theories come this way, and to say that any hole in evolutionary biology or any incomplete picture in evolutionary biology points to God is, one, incorrect, and two, completely outside the domain of science. I think I've made my point on that issue, so let's talk briefly about one last problem that I had with this film. I was astonished and deeply offended that Ben Stein, a person of Jewish descent, would have the audacity, the chutzpah, the absolute gall to show that much videotape of the Holocaust and to insinuate that scientists, biologists, or academic scholars were in some way following in the mode of Adolf Hitler. These people do not see the intelligent design movement or even creationists as less than human. They are attempting to preserve science as science. This sort of vague, backhanded accusation runs all throughout the film, and not only is it grossly misrepresentative of academia, it is the outright exploitation of those images and the very real evil and totalitarianism that they represent. It was disingenuous, false, and terribly mean-spirited, and Ben Stein should be ashamed of himself for doing it, not only as a person of Jewish descent, but as a human being. This ends my review of Expelled. Next up, I'm going to put a sort of period on the subjects I've been talking about. I'm going to review 2 films, not documentaries, that I think speak volumes about the kinds of social uproar we've seen in the 4 documentaries I've reviewed. Stay tuned, and thank you for watching.